Yeah.
Did they ever find that guy's head?
Whose?
The vampire guy.
Oh, you mean Vlad?
Yeah.
Nope.
No. Great. Hello, hauntlings. My name is Alyssa, and this is my ghoulishly gorgeous wife and co-host, Lindsay. This is Macabre at Midnight, where we rate all things that sit on a scale, starting with the adorably spooky and ending with the truly disturbing. On tonight's episode, we're going to be looking at vampires again, specifically Dracula. And Vlad, this is the part 2 to last week's episode. If you missed that, go back, check it out, because that one was pretty dark. It was pretty twisted.
Lots of bloody history to cover.
Lots.
On the man who inspired the famous Count Dracula.
Yes, we did the non-fiction part last week.
Oh, yes.
We are doing the fictional part this week, and then if we have time today, because our last one was quite extensive, we're going to look at some of the hauntings.
That's right.
If we don't, then there will be a part 3. Woo! Oh, God. But guys, we did some really, really cool stuff tonight. We went and saw Sweeney Todd.
Oh, yeah. It was so good.
It was really neat. It was, there's like this little place where, close to where we live, that I just found. And we actually went and saw Dracula one time, too. But tonight we went and saw Sweeney Todd. And this place, you pay $40 and you get to go have a buffet dinner and watch a show. It's like dinner and a show.
It's a show dinner place, and it was amazing.
It was so cool. It was really neat. Sweeney Todd was super fun, and I was like, man. And I started researching, and I was like, is he based on anybody? And he's not, but I thought it would be cool if he was, because, but not that I think people dying is cool. That's not what I'm saying. I just sometimes stuff like that is based on
true events.
Yeah, so I thought it might be, but it wasn't. So just in case anyone was wondering. But also, never did find that Bentley Little book that I was looking for. I don't know. I'm just going to start listening to all of his books again, and I'm going to keep trying to find it. Yeah. I remember it, but I don't know if I'm getting it confused, because I remember, this vampire was sucking the life out of people, and they were finding the husks of people.
Oh.
Yeah, everywhere. It was really creepy. But, so I really want to share it, but I don't know, I gotta figure it out.
That's kind of gross. I'm just imagining, shells that
they
kind of have, eye holes where... Kind of like how, lizards shed their skin and things, or how locusts crawl out of their old skin. That's what I imagined, but people.
That's literally not what I imagine at all. But
you're welcome for that description then.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, I don't think we have any news. Oh, wait.
Okay, well, if we have nothing to go off of, then we'll just dive right in.
All right, let's go.
So, quick recap of last week.
20,000 people were on toothpicks, but giant ones.
Yeah. So, Vlad the Third Dracula was the inspiration behind Count Dracula, the famous fictional vampire written by the 19th century author Bram Stoker.
Do you think it's interesting that his name is Bram and that there was a castle called Bran?
You know what? Some people have made that connection. That it's really uncanny that was a thing.
Yeah, that's weird. But yeah.
It's a weird coincidence.
It is. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your recap. Yeah, so go ahead.
And like Alyssa said at the beginning, if you missed the history of Vlad the Third Dracula, or Vlad Stepesh, go back and listen to that, because it is extensive. And boy, is it dark and terrifying.
And I'm sure, there's more on it than just what she talked about.
Oh yeah, there's probably more that out there that I couldn't find or didn't find because of how extensive it is, and there's people who still research him today,
Yeah. Yep.
because there's still a lot of mystery surrounding him and his death.
But we are out of reality and into fiction today, so...
Right, so we are going to focus actually instead on who inspired Dracula and where Dracula supposedly was from and where he stayed. So if you know anything about Count Dracula and his story, you know that he was actually from Transylvania instead of Wallachia. I think this was just for aesthetic purposes, just because Transylvania rolls off the tongue a little better.
Yeah, it does.
And it sounds more mysterious than Wallachia.
I think Wallachia sounds fun, but I could see... when I was younger, I actually didn't believe Transylvania was a real place. So...
Yeah, Count Dracula lived in a famous castle that was heavily inspired by a real-life castle called Bran's Castle, which is located in Bran, Romania. Now, this castle is actually unlike all the other castles that we talked about, you know, where they were in cities or like on the outskirts or on a mountain. This one is actually in the middle of a city.
Okay, well, I mean, a lot of castles were that way back then, so that makes sense.
Right. So, out of the other ones that I've talked about, like in last week's episode, this one's probably in the best condition, the most well known.
Okay.
Mostly because it's a big tourist spot. It's been renovated before. It's heavily marketed as Dracula's castle. So when someone says they're going to Dracula's castle to see Dracula's castle, this is likely the castle that they're talking about. The story goes that Bram Stoker saw an image of Bran Castle and decided to use its depiction as a means to describe the castle that Count Dracula lived in.
Okay.
In his book. And so the place just became well known for it.
Okay.
But Bran Castle actually has quite the extensive history itself and was actually not directly linked to Vlad Dracula. There's no real written record of his living there, staying there for long periods of time.
Which you also mentioned in the last episode.
That's right. Yeah, so this actually has almost no real connection to Dracula himself, the real-life Dracula. So this is definitely known for the fictional Count Dracula's castle and not Vlad Dracula. So Bran Castle was actually built in about 1377, before it was a big tourist spot, obviously. It was actually a garrison and a military fortress. And it would be a military fortress and used as a garrison for close to 500 years or so.
All right.
So it had seen a lot of war. I mean, in the last episode, I did mention that Vlad did or might have stayed in Bran Castle during the times that he was at war during his rule. But it wasn't necessarily primarily his. After its military history, it did become a royal castle.
All right.
But it wouldn't become a royal castle until the 1920s.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Dang. All right. 1920s. That was literally just like 100 years ago. That's interesting.
Yes. So after the military used it and all that, the castle did sit in ruin for a while. Okay. Then the 1920 hit. The queen at the time, her name was Queen Marie. She would take a liking to the castle and decided to rebuild and renovate it.
All right.
Queen Marie, I think, was around between 1920 and 1947. She would spend the first 7 years there in the castle, renovating it inside and out to be fit for royal. So she'd transform it from military garrison into a royal castle.
All right.
And her renovations would be what stuck to today. Now, Queen Marie really favored classical music. She actually converted one of the larger rooms inside the castle into a music room.
Oh, that's cool.
which would be fitted with a piano and some other instruments. And she was known to just like sit in that room and just blast classical music.
The original angsty teenager.
So after Queen Marie would pass away, she wasn't actually buried on site in Bran or Bran's castle, but she would request that her heart be sent back to the castle when she passed away.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, so when she died, she would actually have her heart cut out and sent back to the castle.
Why?
Well, she was said to have said that no matter where she went, her heart would always be at Bran's castle.
Like, is that supposed to be sentimental? Because it's just creepy.
Well, she loved the castle so much that she just wanted...
She gave the castle her heart.
Exactly.
Still creepy.
And I believe the heart was actually kept there at the castle for a time. I don't know if it's still there. I didn't find any record of that, but I don't think it's still there, but it was there.
That would be like... never mind. Go on.
So that was just a snippet of Bran Castle. I didn't go too in-depth in that, just because of how extensive the history is on Bran Castle. And this is less about Bran Castle and more about Dracula.
That's fair.
So, Liz, when you think of Dracula, what else do you think of besides him being a vampire?
Garlic.
Mm-hmm.
Bats.
Right.
Stake through the heart.
That's right.
I mean, an organ? Like a pipe organ?
That's fair.
Are you looking for something specific?
No, you said it.
Okay. Is it bats? I love bats.
It is bats.
I love bats.
Mentioned bats. Now, the famous Count Dracula had the ability to turn into a bat.
I would have kept him.
It was said in his novel, if you read his novel, that was the way that Dracula got around at night, was that he would turn into a bat and fly through the night.
Her heart's still there. It's in a really pretty box, and that's gross. But anyway, sorry.
So Queen Marie's heart is still in the castle.
Her heart is still in the castle, yes. While Lindsay was talking about bats, I was looking.
That's creepy.
It's in like a really pretty box.
It's a human heart.
Well, are they going to put it in a paper bag?
No, but I just don't understand why. I mean, I guess they wanted to honor her wishes.
Yeah. I mean, it's creepy, I agree, but the box is nice.
Well, they had to put in something fancy. She was a queen.
Right. But anyway, let's talk about bats, because I like those.
Right. Bats. Yes. So, how do bats come into play here? Why are bats in play here? Surely Bram Stoker wouldn't just pick a random animal, right?
I mean, if you're gonna pick an animal, why not pick a bat? Or a dog?
Well, what if I told you that this actually was pulled from another inspiration that included Vlad the Third?
I'm not seeing the connection, but I'm listening.
So, as you know, Vlad was a very bloodthirsty and ruthless man.
Yes.
Well, he had to have something to keep his prisoners in while they awaited their death.
So what, he kept him in the bat cave?
Oh, you're close.
Okay, was Bruce Wayne a prisoner of Vlad?
No. Under one of his fortresses, Vlad had constructed such an elaborate dungeon that it traveled deep below the earth, where it was untouched by time and weather, earthquakes, anything like that. Actually, I'm fairly sure his dungeons are probably the only part of anything he's built that's still 100% intact.
That's creepy.
Now, these dungeons, which were deep underground and made of stone, were actually so deep that they connected to the
Bat Cave.
Famous Bat Caves of Romania.
I actually thought you were, like, not gonna plural that. I thought you were gonna say the famous Bat Cave, and I was like, okay, hold on, back up. What kind of bats are in Romania? Are they vampire bats?
There are several different species. These caves are deep, they're long, they go for miles.
Okay.
So they're home to several different species of bats. So it wasn't uncommon to have bats hanging out, in this area. And that's how it got connected to Vlad Dracula, was because bats were hanging around his dungeons, which is interesting because legend says that he only allowed a small handful of people into his dungeons. That way, anyone who was kept prisoner, like their friends and family, or anyone who might try to rescue them, had no idea where they were being held. And so rescue attempts couldn't be made.
Damn. I mean, again, that's genius, but dark.
Yes. So that was just another way to connect Vlad Dracula to Count Dracula, was through these bat caves.
Okay. I'm looking at the different kind of bats that are in Romania, and like they all look like they look like they're not all vampire bats, but they all have like the short squished face, like that little red bats have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I figured it'd be like the little bats, considering he was like associated with the vampire bat, I mean, from other reasons, besides him being a vampire.
Well, I haven't seen a vampire bat yet on the list, but they all look like they look relatively, they don't look like fruit bats or like long-eared bats. They have those tiny squished faces. Okay, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, in the documentary that I watched with them, they actually look like they were all pretty small. Like
they all look like they're really small variations of bats.
Like small, like several different species of small bats that live in these caves.
They're all cute, though. Equally cute.
She likes bats.
I love bats. I have the cutest tattoo of a bat on my leg, and that's actually what I'm in school for, is bat biology. So, I like that.
Well, I think that about finishes touching up on where Dracula came from.
Okay.
And now you know his history.
All right.
How interesting was that?
It makes me wonder, like, how into the history of Vlad Bram Stoker was. Like, I wonder if that's just something that he found.
Like, if he researched.
Yeah, because it seems like there were quite a few connections.
Oh, yeah, there were definitely connections. And, like, Count Dracula was a very scary count. Like, if you've read his book, like, he's not a nice man. He makes his little slave man go crazy.
Yeah.
He
abducts the woman.
He steals people away. He enslaves people. He's definitely not a nice man.
No,
and
not at all.
I've seen, I said I'm a fan of Dracula, so I've seen some movies where Dracula was even a warrior. Like, he had an army. He was a leader.
Yeah.
So, in those interpretations, those were probably a little closer to the real Vlad.
Right.
None of them were as terrifying as the real Vlad Dracula.
I'm sure.
Because I don't think I have seen or read any version of this fictional story of Count Dracula where he was impaling people. Like, even in the ones where he did become some creature after being a leader or, like, leading this army or whatever, he still wasn't impaling thousands and thousands of people.
So what you would find is, in the work of fiction, it's more like there are pieces and parts that match up with Vlad Dracula.
Yes.
But they're really very, very, very different entities.
Oh, yes.
Like, they're not the same at all.
No.
There's just pieces that connect them. Like, you can tell it was inspired by.
Yeah, it's definitely nothing like the real-life Vlad Tepes, who was a Romanian prince and a terrifying leader, and even a hero.
Right. So, you got some hauntings for us?
That's right, because it doesn't end there.
It wouldn't.
So, I'm going to leave it up to you, Liz. Which castle do you want to hear about first?
Might as well start with Bran's.
So, Bran Castle has its own hauntings. One of the hauntings, most famously, of course, as you can guess, is Queen Marie herself.
Okay.
Understandably so, considering her heart is
literally in the freaking castle.
It's on display there, still to this day. I did watch some videos. One of the vloggers that I watched was actually called Amy's Crypt. We will link them.
Okay.
They did an investigation at Bran's Castle where they actually stayed overnight.
Ew.
Yeah. And not a lot of people get to stay overnight at Bran's Castle because it's off limits. You're allowed to visit it during the day, but
like tourist visits.
Yeah. But no one sleeps there. No one lives there.
Okay.
It's basically like a museum now.
That makes sense.
They actually got to stay in Bran's Castle. Interestingly enough, they managed to capture pieces of classical music blasting through their spirit boxes.
She was down there rocking out, man.
Yeah, and if you don't know what a spirit box is, it's a little device you use that channels white noise, like on different frequencies, because it's thought that spirits and ghosts can communicate
through these different sound waves.
Yeah, using those sound waves to form words.
Yep.
So while they were investigating the music room, they actually caught it was like fragmented, like sounds of classical music coming through the spirit box. And then later in their investigation, they would actually, when they went back to this room to pick up their equipment before moving on to another part of the castle, they found that their spirit box, which had been switched off, had switched itself on and turned to a station where it was just playing classical music.
Oh my God.
And it was just blasting classical music.
Woman knows what she likes. Even in death. That's freaking wild.
That's
crazy. Awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to experience something like that. That's awesome.
That is really, it is really interesting. They did also find or see a shadow person up in one of the towers at Bran Castle.
I don't like shadow people.
Which now Bran Castle, their towers are, like I said, like museums. I think one of the towers holds medieval torture devices on display. This was the area that they saw in, and the ghost there had asked them to stay with them.
The shadow person?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Even better, when they went down into the dungeons, which actually the dungeons in Bran Castle weren't underground because it was a garrison.
Yeah.
Originally, when they went into this torture room area, one of them felt a breath on the back of their neck. And they heard some footsteps and some bangs and moving of furniture and things.
I don't like that. When a spirit can move furniture, they've had to because they collect energy from things around them. That's why lights will flicker. That's why batteries will drain. Generally, they're more energetic on stormy nights because they're taking that electric energy out of the air. And I would imagine, because I'm alive and it takes me a lot of energy to move furniture, so I can't imagine being a spirit,
right,
with no physical body and moving something on the physical realm. That has to take a lot of energy.
Oh yeah. They got even more responses, seemingly intelligent responses when they did this method called the Estes method. And if you don't know what that is, it's when someone blindfolds themselves and then puts headphones on, directly connecting them to a spirit box. So they can't see or hear anything but the spirit box, while the other person in the room then asks questions.
And that seems like a good viable method too.
Yeah,
because you don't know what they're asking, so whatever's coming through, that's a good way to kind of eliminate any possibility of bullshit.
Yeah, it's also said that the Estes methods kind of is deep diving into, the energies around you because you're blindfolded, so you can't see anything.
Right. It's sensitive deprivation.
What I really liked about their video is that when they did the Estes method, they actually connected it to an AI app that I think the guy's name is Jared. I think he created it or something.
Okay.
Anyways, this generator creates images.
Okay.
So they were seeing images as these words were coming through, or just images would come through.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they were describing some of the images that they saw, and on one occasion, the images that came through was that of a white horse.
Like while they're doing the Estes method, they're doing this?
Yes.
Okay. So one person cannot see what's on the screen.
Right. Yeah. So they have to describe.
Oh, okay.
So they're describing the images, and a lot of them are like symbolic, but like this white horse. So where does the white horse come in? Well, Queen Marie actually loved horseback riding.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, and she actually owned a white horse. That was like her prized horse.
Holy moly, that's insane. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a good idea for ghost hunting, like having the AI image and like using the Estes method. Mm-hmm. And that's such a good idea.
I thought it was interesting. That's why I liked watching their video. It was something I've never seen before. And I've watched a lot of paranormal investigators, and some of them use different types of equipment, but this was the first time I've ever seen anything like create images like that. So that was pretty neat. That was like different.
Yeah, that's awesome. So was it like the spirit was creating the images?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the person in the headphones with the blindfold was telling him what the image was.
Yes.
That is so freaking cool. I love that. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So I thought that was really neat. So definitely Bran Castle definitely is haunted by the ghost of Queen Marie, without a doubt. It's thought that other ghosts might exist there just because of its extensive military background. I did watch one other video of another team of investigators that went in. They had a very different experience. Theirs was a little bit more terrifying, and I'll explain it to you, then I'll tell you what I think it was that they were talking to.
Okay.
Yes, so their name was Sam and Colby. So when they went into a different area of the castle, okay? So they focused less on the music room. They did go into the music room because
why wouldn't you?
Well, that, and because Queen Marie is, well known to be there. Like,
right.
She is known to be there.
Right.
But in one other part of the castle that they were in, they were talking to what they believed was a stairgoy.
No.
Now, if you remember from the first part, we talked about them briefly. Those are the things that gave birth to the idea of vampirism in Romania, because they're vampiric, like demonic spirits of the dead that drink blood to sustain themselves. They're basically spirits that have unfinished business.
Right.
So during their talk with this thing that they believed was a stairgoy, they were asking it how they could help it, because this thing kept saying that it wanted help, and it answered with blood.
Nope.
Yes. It said blood, and then it said death, and then when they asked it about that, it said leader.
Okay.
Now, the interesting thing about their walkthrough into Bran Castle was they actually had brought water from the witch's pond with them.
Oh my god, why? Why would you do that?
And if you remember from the last episode, Witch's Pond is said to be cursed, and it is also said to be the legendary place where Vlad the Third, Dracula, was executed.
Real Dracula.
That's right. So yeah, and they were kind of pouring little bits of this water out while they were talking to this thing. And the thing was saying that it felt good, that they wanted more. And then when they tried to ask where it was, they thought it was in the hallway or like in the music room. This thing was outside. It was outside because it kept saying out.
That's weird.
And when they opened one of the doors that they thought they heard where it was coming from, it led outside.
I would not want to be dealing with that kind of entity at all.
Yeah.
No.
So they said it was a stairgoy, which is possible. Now, I'm not saying that it was a stairgoy. It could have been a stairgoy, but I actually think it might have been somebody who was piked there at Bran Castle.
Oh, okay. You know what? That would make sense, though, because, like, if they're saying the water feels good, like, you think about it. If you're suffering, like, that's one of the first things, like, it's even depicted in movies. If someone is suffering, they ask for water. You know what I mean? Like, more water, please. So that makes sense.
It also said, when it says leader, like, I'm like, a leader killed them. Like, who's a leader that might have killed them?
Right.
I believe, my theory is, I think they were talking to one of the victims of Vlad Shepesh while he was passing through there.
Yeah, and it was outside too. I mean, they're piked outside.
Right. And he did supposedly, get a hold of thieves and whatever crime you were for, he would execute you.
Right.
And that was his preferred method of execution.
That makes sense. I like that better than a Strigoi.
Right. Because if it was a Strigoi, then it was something a lot darker.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, while they were there, they also experienced bits of classical music coming through and things. So Queen Marie was also present. It's interesting to see different paranormal people go through and experience similar things. Kind of like solidifies that it's there.
Right. Yeah. Especially when they're experiencing the same things, like if they were experiencing the classical music as well. That might be residual, though. It sounds like whatever they were talking to is intelligent, but the classical music might be residual.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, though, because you did say that they turned on the radio, right?
She turned on their spirit box to classical music.
Right. So, to me, that's intelligent. So, I don't know.
So that's some of the hauntings of Bran Castle. I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of different experiences out there. You can look it up all day, like Dracula's Castle. Because it's a tourist spot, lots of paranormal investigators have visited it.
Right.
So I'm sure there's been all kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
Those were just a couple that I had found and decided to talk about. So we'll move on from Bran Castle. So our next big spot we're going to talk about is Poneri Castle. Now, if you remember, Poneri Castle was actually one of the homes of Vlad the Third Dracula, Vlad Shepesh. It was one of his fortresses. This castle was actually one of his sanctuaries.
And is this a tourist attraction today?
It is. So you can visit Poneri Castle. It is very hard to get to, though, because
this is the one that was like in the middle of...
It's in the mountain. It's on top of a summit. So you have to climb 1,480 stairs to get to the top.
Yeah, mama ain't doing that.
And if you commit to that climb, there's only 2 times during the day that a guide will take you. And if you miss it, you miss it. They're not going back for you.
I don't... Is it the same guide both times?
I think so.
I bet he has fabulous legs.
Yeah, I believe from what I read, you can only visit at like 10 in the morning and then they go again at 3 p.m.
Yeah, because you need time to get up 14,000 stairs and then back down. I would sit and slide. When you're a kid and you like slide down the stairs, I'd be sitting and sliding down those stairs to get down.
Yeah. So Poneri, you can visit Poneri. It's not as popular, mostly because there's not much left of the castle itself. I mean, for what's left, it's in good condition just because of the way it was built. But it's not as in good condition as like Bran Castle.
So it's like, is it worth hiking 14,000? Is it 14,000?
1,400. 1,400 stairs.
That's still a lot of stairs. But is it worth hiking up 1,400 stairs?
I mean, you could still go inside it and take a look around. It's not very big. It was not a big fortress.
So the answer is no, it's not.
But it is haunted, so you might visit it for its hauntings.
No. Anything that's over like 10 stairs, I'm not doing it.
Well, what if I told you that Vlad Shepesh himself was thought to haunt this area?
Well, I want to stay as far away from him as possible. So, still no.
Okay, so Vlad is said to haunt the halls of Poneri Castle. It's also said that his wife has been seen kind of hanging out in the halls and at the bottom of the cliff side where she threw herself into the river.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if this is the castle she threw herself from.
Yes. Yeah, it is. I think her ghost is more well known to be there than his.
So is the river up on the summit, or did she like topple down the summit?
No, so the castle itself sits on top of a summit.
Yeah.
The river runs through the valley below it.
Oh my god, so she threw herself down the summit.
Yes.
Oh geez, I didn't realize that. Okay, that's so horrific. That poor woman. Oh my god, I hope she died quickly. She probably didn't.
Like hundreds of feet down. down this steep cliff into the valley below.
That poor woman.
Also, to haunt the site is thought to be the ghosts of all the nobles that Vlad forced into labor to build the castle for him, and then piked when it was completed.
Go figure.
Visitors have reported seeing light anomalies outside the castle that seem to descend from the top of the castle down into the valley below. Voices can be heard there. And again, I watched another video of someone investigating Ponari Castle. Now, everything the ghosts were saying in the video was Romanian, so you couldn't really understand it unless you know Romanian.
Oh,
but this was another video I watched by Amy's Crypt, because they did such a good job with the first one. I was like,
you wanted to go back.
Let's see, if they went to the other location, and they did. So they actually slept in the valley below Ponari Castle. So they were actually along the river where the Vlad's wife had thrown herself. And they did capture some strange voices and noises in the valley while they were down there. Ones that actually knew who Vlad Shepesh was, no. Because they responded back with his name when she asked about them. They responded.
With his name?
His name. It said Vlad.
Ew.
Yes.
No.
Yes. She did see like a light there, but couldn't confirm whether or not it was the light anomaly that other people had reported, or if it was just a random light source.
Something from,
Yeah, because the castle, like, it was so dark. Like, this mountain is, like, out in the middle of the wilderness. There's, like, nothing around it. It's in the middle of the forest.
Right.
So, it was completely dark out there. No light at all.
That's weird, then.
Yeah, I thought that was strange. I didn't know if that was...
Could you see the light on the video?
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay. Was it just like an orb light? Or?
Yeah. It's just like a little light coming from up towards the summit, but it doesn't move or anything. So she's like, maybe it's just a light source.
Yeah.
But it was too dark to like go investigate it, obviously, because this was in the middle of the night.
Right.
If you ever do decide to go to Ponari Castle, just be mindful that the area is well known for bears and wild dogs.
Well, you probably don't go up there without your tour guide or your escort.
Yeah. So there's one more small little place I want to mention.
Okay.
Now, you remember Witch's Pond, right?
Yes.
Witch's Pond is thought to be magical and cursed.
Okay.
Right? Because of the history of witchcraft practices around it. Supposedly animals don't go near it.
Right.
Well, it's thought that the ghost of Vlad
is stuck there.
Haunts the forest outside Bucharest.
Okay.
And Witch's Pond, because that's supposedly the place where he was beheaded.
Right.
Now, people have said they've seen his ghost wandering through the forest out there.
Ooh.
Sometimes without a head.
Oh, God. I hate that.
Yeah, and it was a mention I watched in another video where they didn't have any footage of it, but in this video she talked about where she had seen a misty figure coming from the forest up the path to Witch's Pond.
Okay.
As like a black, misty shape of a man before it disappeared.
Yeesh. God, imagine that. Like being there and seeing that coming at you through the woods at this cursed pond.
That's scary for me to think of, just like thinking of this headless ghost just wandering around.
That's what I'm thinking. We went from Dracula to the Headless Horseman real fast. Like, no. I could not imagine just a guy walking around without his head. Imagine seeing that.
Well, I mean, Vlad was beheaded, supposedly, by his enemies. So, if that's him, he's looking for his head.
But they don't know where his body's at, so what if it's his real body?
What if he's wandering the forest looking for his head?
Then that is disgusting, and I hate that.
They didn't ever find his bones. Or his head.
Stop it. Right now. That's because they're in the sea. I already have accepted that. I have already accepted that.
Okay, let's So that concludes Dracula and Vlad the Impaler.
That was a doozy.
That was a trip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, with all of this history, how should we rate this?
I'm going to say truly disturbing because I literally almost commented on it and just said, oh my God, that's truly disturbing. So, like, that was like a thoughtless reaction. So, I'm going to say it's truly disturbing. It's up at the top of the scale.
So, yes, I'm going to say that Vlad the Impaler, the mystery behind his death, all of the hauntings are definitely truly disturbing.
Yeah, they are.
Count Dracula as a fictional character,
I feel like that's like...
He's scary.
Yeah, he's scary. That's scary. Yeah, I agree. Because, for one, I feel like part of the reason, not because, like, this is not classic horror. It is. You know, it's classic horror. But I feel like Dracula has just been redone and redone and redone. And at this point, it's so just ingrained in pop culture that we're kind of desensitized to what it is.
Yeah, I was going to say even some depictions of it are even, like, they're funny. They're, like, comedic. You know, I've seen parodies of Dracula.
Right. That's not to say, like, if you placed yourself in the book and it was actually happening, it wouldn't be scary. Like, when we went and saw the play, like, I was like, oh, wow, this is actually really creepy. But, like, as a whole, looking at the entirety of what Dracula has become in pop culture, yes, that's scary.
Yeah. So, yeah, the original story itself, and there are some really good Dracula films out there that are really, you know, kind of thrilling on the creepy scale. So I wouldn't say that...
It's not keeping you up at night.
I wouldn't say that rating kind of covers every bit of what Count Dracula is, but like Alyssa said, on the whole, as in pop culture,
on a general basis,
it's just not real scary anymore.
The hauntings are also, I think, truly disturbing, especially the freaking Strigoi. I didn't like that.
No,
because if it is a Strigoi, bleh.
That's either way you slice it. Whether it was a victim who died, someone like even from military past that died there. Either way, it's weird. It's uncomfortable. I don't like that at all. The fact that it was saying blood or
that it liked the water, for some reason that really bothers me, that it was saying like the water felt good. I don't know why that really bothers me.
Yeah, that was kind of gross to me too.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And, you know, so if anyone has actually ever been to Bran's Castle, I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, you know, Lindsay, she would love to hear about it.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like a cool place to visit. If I ever manage to visit Romania, maybe I'll visit it.
You're on your own, lady.
You don't want to see a spooky castle?
I don't want to see a Strigoi. Okay.
That's fair.
If you enjoyed this episode of Macabre at Midnight and you like spooky things, then you can catch us on Amazon Music, Apple Music, Audible, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and more. You can also help us out by liking, rating, and subscribing. We're always looking to improve, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. You can also follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok. You can find those links in our biography wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to hear us talk about something that fits on the scale of screams, or you have an experience or short work of your own horror fiction that you'd like us to share in our new listener library, then you can email us at macabatmidnight@outlook.com. Remember to lock your doors, sprinkle a little bit of salt in the doorway, check under your bed, and stay spooky, and we will see you in your nightmares.
Keep your steaks and your garlic close.